your time in Chicago, Robert Smigel here on the Rich Eisen Show, I imagine you've met many Swerski brother types through that.
So I went to Chicago to do improv, to take improv classes.
Yes.
But I was a huge sports fan. I grew up in New York, as you may gather.
By the Islander in New York.
Not in Long
Nets.
Island, but I just love these teams for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And the logos.
Sure.
I have a logo thing. Look at that logo.
New York Nets, by the way.
That's Dr. J. The only thing about being this old, Rich, is that I got to watch Dr. J. And that I got to watch Walt Frazier. My kids love Walt Frazier, just the announcer.
Sure. Of course.
The rhymes.
Styling and beguiling.
Oh, that's a great one. And Weaving and Achieving.
My favorite one was...
Weaving and Achieving is their favorite.
My favorite one of all time was when Xavier McDaniel played for the Knicks. And he made a great basket, and he just said, excavating. And I'm like, what's he digging? Are you digging his play? Or is he just... I think he just wrote down a bunch of...
You know what a great one is that he says when someone throws up an air ball, he calls it a UFO.
I do love Clyde, man.
He's amazing.
Truly one of the greats in the history of the entirety of New York sports, the Pantheon.
He's incredible.
So you're in Chicago, and
I moved to Chicago, and I got to admit that I think Chicago's a greater sports town than New York.
I hear you.
I think the fans are so loyal, and they have such a great sense of humor. And I noticed, I went to a Cub game, my first weekend there, and because I just had to see Wrigley Field, and I just went up to the box office, and they were like, "Where do you want to sit?" And I was like, "Well, just give me what's the best seat." And they actually had seats by the dugout, and I'm like, "That doesn't happen at Shea."
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't in Chicago anymore, but this was in the '80s, and somehow, so I sat behind the dugout, and I was really excited. Tom Seaver was pitching for Cincinnati, but then I noticed. The people in the bleachers are the ones who are having all the fun.
Yes, right.
They're so creative. They're doing all this stuff. Left field sucks. Right field sucks. Taunting each other, throwing balls back. They invented all that stuff.
Yes.
And they also shunned the wave, which I had a lot of respect for.
Yeah.
Because I would go to Shea Stadium, and the game would be tense, and some idiot would start the wave. And we're supposed to be doing the wave while, it's 4-3 in the bottom of the eighth.
Yeah, right.
Hey, look at this. It's no, this is a game going on.
Yes.
And the Chicago, it doesn't exist. No one has ever done the wave in Chicago. So anyway, then I went to Comiskey, and that's really where I noticed the walrus mustaches, that badge of virility that they all had. Back in the 80s, and a lot of them still do. And of course, there was a lot of Ditka worship. And they really wore the aviator shades. Those were not in style at that point. That was a 70s thing, but
So were you the one in the writer's room or the producer's room?
I came up with that sketch.
You did?
Yeah. We actually performed it in Chicago before.
With who?
With Bob Odenkirk. So Bob and I knew each other from these classes. And I actually ended up bringing him to Saturday Night Live my second year, third year. But during the writer's strike of 1988, we did a show in the summer. We went back to Chicago, did another sketch show, and I tried out that concept because I thought it'll never work on Saturday Night Live. It's too regional. So we did it on stage, and it killed. And then when Mantegna hosted 2 years later, Bob was like, "Robert, we should try it. Come on, Robert." And he suggested that we do it as a sports roundtable show. And then I was like, "Oh, that'd be great." Because then they make their predictions and it's like Bears 62-3, I'm just very casually tossing out. Really? I thought that the Rams might score safety too. 62-5. I'm sorry. I'm being a little, I still have faith in the Bears. Don't worry. But, so we tried it and it did amazing. But again, then I thought, that's it. We did it once. Joe Mantegna was the host. Then this local radio host, Jonathan Brandmeier in Chicago, just kept playing the sketch over and over. And then he made the Bulls a catchphrase because the Bulls that was Michael Jordan's first year.
That was it.
The championship year, 1991. And so by May, George Wendt came to host, and we're like, okay, let's do it again. And then
you got Mantegna back for that.
No,
too?
Mantegna only did it one more time.
Okay.
Then George did it that time. I'm subbing in for my brother Bill, who's had another heart attack. And then George was the one who kept wanting to come back. Mantegna was doing like David Mamet movies at the time. He was like, it was great. I had a good time, guys. But George was like, yeah, I'm a comedian.
When did you say we got to get Farley involved?
Oh, he was in the first sketch.
He was in the first sketch.
Oh, yeah, because he's a Midwesterner, so I knew he could do it. And then Mike could fake the accent. He'd spent a lot of time in Chicago. And then I had written it. I had written Hartman into it. I didn't put myself in it, but Jim Downey knew that I could do the accent well, and he's from Joliet, and he said, I want you to be in it because he actually thought I did the accent the best.
Okay.
And he said, you'll be the barometer, so anybody from the Midwest who's watching will hear you, and that will give the sketch a level of authority, and then everybody else can do their variation of it.
I thought it was Farley pounding his chest to get his, to like give himself CPR.
Yeah. Well, that too. Like, it's so funny because, like, so then I went back to Chicago and I would meet people, and it's like, I know guys just like that. It's like, yeah, look in the mirror. What are you talking about? You know guys like that.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.